Hello YouTube and fellow DC Comic fans, I'm Keith One Shot, and this is my dramatic reading series, and today we will be covering the Flash Annual Flash War Prelude from DC Comics. We start this story off in the 25th century, in the recently destroyed Flash Museum, where we see relics of the Flash's past, including a picture of Superman racing the Flash, a picture of the Flash and the first Kid Flash, a shattered picture of Savitar, and the smashed up suit of Impulse. We then see the police force of the 25th century investigating the museum. Then one detective says, "You a Flash fan?" Then the other officer says, "I met Barry Allen once. I was disappointed. Seeing the Flash Museum total doesn't faze me as much as it does you." Then the CSI says, "Whoever, or whatever it was, totally fried the security data. But a science police officer swears they saw a Flash outside before it went down." Another officer walks over and says, "Not unheard of for a Flash to take a time trip that causes trouble. Did he happen to recognize which Flash it was?" Then another cop says, "Commander, sir, my evidence scanner is showing some unreal readings." The commander then scans the statue of Reverse Flash. Then he says, "You weren't kidding, officer. Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash. My brother Box is picking up traces of his corpse imprint in the air. This case just escalated to murder, and the time of death matches when the destruction was caused." Then the CSI says, "Impossible. Run the scans again. All of Thawne's deaths have been recorded in the Flash Museum archives." The officer then tells his commander, "Someone should have locked Thawne up in Iron Heights and thrown away the key a long time ago." Then the commander replies, "That hellhole is equipped to hold one person now. You know that. Reverse Flash put him there. The one good thing Thawne ever did was catch." Then, as his scanner beeps, the commander says, "Hold on. There are some heavy temporal flare-ups in the Wally West Wing. What are the chances of getting struck by lightning in the same exact way as Barry Allen?" Then he gets to live out every kid's fantasy, and team up with his hero, and call himself Kid Flash. No one is that lucky. No one. Our history books detail that changes were made to the timeline, and West was nearly lost in the Speed Force. Then the officer says, "But he found a lightning rod to pull him back, so he could be the Flash again. And that isn't right. The history here is all wrong." Then the commander says, "The energy overflowing in this room is more than just temporal fluxes. I'm picking up other forces beyond anything I've ever seen. Whatever they are, they're tied into events that happened in the 21st century. Something big must have happened that damaged the Speed Force across all of time and space. And it's far from over." We then go to Central City, where we see the two Wallys, Flash and Kid Flash, both saving citizens as they battle Top. Then, as he spins around causing chaos, Top shouts, "Spin, Central City, spin!" As Kid Flash is saving two kids, he says, "This lunatic has been at it for hours." Then Barry Allen Flash says, "The Top wants everyone to be just as disoriented as he is, Kid Flash." We then hear Wally West Flash think to himself, "My name is Wally West, and Kid Flash's real name is also Wally West. It gets confusing, I know. We're working on it. We are superheroes, except my planet didn't blow up. My parents weren't shot in an alley, and I wasn't chosen to be a space cop. All that happened to me was the Flash. His name is Barry Allen. He's my uncle, and one of my best friends. It's his unquestioning sense of hope that inspired me to be a hero. He says he's the fastest man alive, which is debatable." We then see Barry Allen Flash running up behind Top. Then Flash shouts, "We should put our spin on Top's plan, boys." We then hear Wally Flash think to himself, "I never have the heart to tell him how dorky he can be." Then Top points at Flash and shouts, "Is that really you, Flash? It's so hard to trust my own eyes these days. It's been a real struggle to keep reality straight in my mind." Then Kid Flash says, "Can you please show Tornado Man what speed really is, Flash?" Then Wally West replies, "The top spin can hit an F5 on the Vegeta scale, Kid Flash." Then Flash runs towards Top and shouts, "But there are other reasons he's one of our most dangerous foes. He gives off an energy wave that can cause vertigo." Then, as Flash holds his head in pain, Top shouts, "Tisk tisk! How embarrassing for you, Flash, to feel your mind spinning further and further away. But I know what it's like for your world to go topsy-turvy." Then Flash smiles and says, "My mom always told me I had two left feet, but I still get on the dance floor. especially if it helps create a distraction. Roscoe! We then see the two Wally West running circles around Top. Then Top shouts, "Oh, are you referring to your teacher's pets? My superior intellect has your plan all figured out, you silly speedsters. Reversing my spin with yours. Hoping the centrifugal forces will create inertia. Or you're trying to suck the air out of my cyclone, so I'll pass out." Then Wally West stops running and tells Top, "Man, listen, I was never very good at games. I find the easiest way to stop a top is to break the table it's on." Then Top shouts, "My balance! No! I just wanted to free everyone's mind from..." Then suddenly, Flash runs up and cracks Top in the face, knocking him out. Then Kid Flash says, "So, can anyone tell me what a top is, without looking it up online?" Then Wally West replies, "That's mean, Kid Flash. Teen Titans used to respect their elders." Then a few citizens cheer, "Thank you, Flash! Woo!" Flash then turns around and says, "Police! Someone must have called," which means 3, 2... We then see Iris West making her way through the crowd as she says, "Iris West, Central City citizen, coming through. You're old news, Flash. I'm curious who this new redheaded Flash is." Then Wally West replies, "Gotta go." Then he runs away. Then Iris says, "Is it something I said?" Then Flash says, "He's shy." Then Kid Flash says, "And we better catch up with him." We then see Flash and Kid Flash catch up to Wally. Then Flash says, "Wally, are you still not ready to tell Iris who you are?" Then Wally replies, "Not in the street for an interview. Besides, I'm hungry. Come on. I know the best place in Central City for the post-Speed Force munchies." We then see Barry with the two Wallies eating tacos on a bench in the park. Then Barry says, "These are terrific." Then the older Wally replies, "And cheap. So eating a speedster diet doesn't break the bank." "I know you won't, but you should totally try one with hot sauce, Barry." Then the younger Wally says, "How did you know about this place, man? Best tacos I've ever had in Central City or Keystone. Easy." Then the older Wally tells him, "Aunt Iris used to take me here when I'd visit. It was always our first stop when she saved me from my parents." Then Wally looks down and says, "It was a tradition between us." Then Barry says, "Wally, it's time." Then Wally replies, "Not today." Then Barry says, "When then? I tried to get you and Iris together, so you deal with it. Finally talk to her about the missing time and memories. Who you are. That you're alive." Then Wally says, "You tried to... Wait, just now with Top. Iris was there because you tipped her off. How could you do that without talking to me?" Barry then puts his hand on Wally's shoulder and says, "You need her, Wally." Then the younger Wally says, "All this timey-wimey stuff is a headache, but she's been having some mean nightmares since she killed Thorn, and..." Then the older Wally says, "What? Iris did what?" Then the younger Wally says, "You didn't tell? Barry, man!" Then Barry says, "I thought you..." "Right." Then the older Wally says, "Barry, tell me." Then Barry says, "Wally, a few months ago, Eobard Thawne kidnapped Iris to the 25th century. He tormented her, used her to get at me. Thawne and I fought, and I managed to remove his connection to the negative speed force, turning him human. But when he threatened us again, Iris killed him with a black hole gun. It degenerated his body into ash." Then Wally says, "And you didn't think to tell me?" We then see sparks charging around Wally. Then Barry says, "Watch yourself, Wally. We're in a public space." Then the younger Wally says, "Yeah, dude, ixnay on the eatspay." Then the older Wally runs away and says, "Watch myself? Like I trusted you to watch Iris?" We then see Barry chasing Wally through the streets of Central City. Then Barry shouts, "Wally, stop! Don't make me chase you!" Wally quickly hits the brakes, then tells Barry, "If I really wanted to run away, you wouldn't be able to stop me, Barry. So whatever you have to say, say it." Then Barry says, "I know things didn't work out with Linda." Then Wally says, "What? Do not bring Linda into this!" Then Barry says, "You never needed to be tiptoed around in the past, Wally, but it's like you hit one roadblock and gave up. You've done nothing the last year to rebuild the rest of your life. Nothing! You've been the Flash non-stop!" Wally then points at himself and says, "I've gotten this speech from just about everyone, Barry. Superman, the Titans. But this isn't about just me. This is about what it's always about." Then Wally points at Barry and says, You want me to talk to Iris so you don't have to lie to her anymore. You let Iris be in danger because you couldn't handle Thawne." Then Barry says, "Wally, you weren't there." Then Wally gets in Barry's face and says, "Oh, because you're always there when people need you." Then Barry replies, "What is that supposed to mean?" Just then, the younger Wally runs up to the two Flashes and says, "Whoa, guys, we're family here, right? I swear, if you two force me to make any slowdown puns, I'll never forgive you." The older Wally turns and starts to walk away. Then Barry says, "Wally, I'm sorry. I should have told you about Thawne. But that doesn't change the fact that you haven't moved forward with your life." Wally then replies, "It's okay, Barry. Like you said, it's my life. My responsibility to move it forward. And here's my first step." Then the older Wally runs away, leaving Barry and the younger Wally behind. Then Wally says to Barry, "You think you'll be okay?" Then Barry says, "I hope so." We then go to Titan's Tower in New York, where we see Wally in his Flash suit. Then he thinks to himself, "Of course Barry apologized first. That's what he does. That's who he is." But Barry doesn't get it. Because of the Flashpoint and Abracadabra, we still don't know how much of my life was ripped away. And he expects me to hit the ground running. But where to? There's already a Flash and a Kid Flash. The only people who remember me are the Titans, and the Justice League forced us to disband. Whenever I got lost like this, I would go to Linda, but all the Man Out of Time stuff freaked her out. And Iris, I miss the people who were in my life, but there could be someone else who remembers me. Iris used to make fun of me because I could never tell when a girl liked me, that I needed to be hit over the head. We then see a memory of Wally as a kid throwing snowballs with a friend. Then we hear Wally think to himself, "With Francis Kane, it was a snowball fight when we were kids. But long after those fun snow days, Francis developed powers of magnetism. And even though she was convinced the powers were a curse, she used them to be a hero. She called herself Magenta. I remember we spent time in the Titans together, and for a moment, we were an item. This was before I met Linda. But that time is still important to me. Ever since I got back from the Speed Force, a lot of my old memories have been hit or miss. But I still remember Frankie. Is she a hero? Does she even have her powers? I should have checked in on her after I got back, like I should have done with a lot of people." We then go to Keystone City College, where we see Francis Kane walking out of school. Then she says to a friend, "Hey Sally, if you meet me for coffee tomorrow, I'll help you with your paper." Then Sally replies, "You're the best, Francis." Then Francis walks down the street. Then Wally says, "Hey Frankie." Then she turns around and says, "No one has called me that since I was a kid." Then Wally says, "Well, we were friends once upon a time. My, name is Wally West." Then Frankie says, "Who?" Then Wally says, We grew up together in Blue Valley, Nebraska." Then Frankie turns around and says, "Listen, I'm bad with names, but I never forget a face, and I know I've never seen yours before." Then as Frankie walks away, Wally looks down and says, "We'd have snowball fights, and slide down the slope in front of Mr. Perez's place. Huh. Goodbye, Frankie." Then suddenly, Frankie turns around and says, "I taught you how to make snow angels, and you took me dancing. Wally!" Then Wally says, "Yes." Then the two hug, and Wally tells Frankie, "Oh man, you have no idea how freaked out I was to talk to you. I was so afraid you wouldn't remember me." Then Frankie says with a shocked look on her face, "We were a couple, and I was a Titan, and I became a rogue. I remember everything." Then suddenly, Frankie's eyes start glowing purple, and she transforms back into Magenta, as all of her memories come back to her in a flash. As Magenta gets ready to attack Wally, she shouts, "I remember everything!" And that ends today's story. Comic published from DC Comics. All rights, story art, and characters belong to DC Comics and their respective owners. Not me. This has been The Flash Annual, Flash War Prelude, and I'm your host, Keith One Shot. If you like this video, make sure to check out the rest of my Comic Complete dramatic reading series, and support DC Comics by picking up a copy of the trades and single issue comics. Support your local comic book shop, take care, and have a great day. Goodbye!